We're on a mission from God.
Wendy?
So I got that going for me.
Darling?
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Light of my life.
We enjoy your films.
I am a human being.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in real time. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today marks the 40th anniversary of the release of The Gong Show on May 23rd, 1980. It was written by Chuck Barris and Robert Downey, Sr., Iron Man's dad, directed by Chuck Barris, and released by Universal Pictures. This film performed notoriously poorly in the box office on account of a deadly combination of being bad, also coming out the same day as The Shining. It's not bad, but it actually beat The Shining for its opening weekend box office.
Well, there you go.
And then plummeted precipitously from there. We start with Barris waking up at home. He's heading into auditions for The Gong Show, the show that Chuck Barris hosted in his real life. He parks outside the studio where like a hobo guy is trying to pitch him on a performance that he could do for The Gong Show. He gets a little bit closer to the studio when he's harangued by a rabbi character who's trying to audition. But the rabbi character is like,
Michael! Michael! Why don't you answer me? What's the matter? You're too big to talk to me. You're such a big man, you won't talk to little, small, teeny, tiny me.
You keep calling me Michael. My name's not Michael.
You're not Michael Berry.
No. I'm Chuck Berry.
he's Chuck Barris. He's not Chuck Berry. He's like, hey, chick, this is how my show's going. He's like, no, I'm Chuck is my name. Then he goes into the building where he's like confronted with this group in full uniform called The Satisfaction, and they start singing a cabaret song for him. The whole crowd is following him through this entire building. He gets to his secretary's desk, and everyone that's followed him in is being like shooed out by security, basically.
Yeah.
The security or the secretary gives him a glossy of a woman, and she says, this 85-year-old woman came to see you. She says that you got her pregnant. It's either you or Julius Irving. And he looks at the picture. He's like,
I never slept with her.
His delivery is so great because it seems like I had to see this picture to be sure. He steps into his office where a corporate stooge named Didlo is waiting. He warns about slippage. He says, I have to tell you, your show's had some slippage lately. And he said, oh, I thought we were up in the ratings. And he said, you are, but I can smell slippage coming. And as a result of this impending slippage that I can sense, you were not getting a raise this year. And he's like, I didn't get a raise last year. Well, that's all right. You're just going to have to make some sacrifices. You can't take the limo to the studio anymore. And he's like, I don't take a limo to the studio. How do you get to the studio?
I drive my car. Oh, gross.
And then he's like, you should really be taking a limo just for appearances. He's like, okay, fine. I'll start taking a limo. No, it's not in the budget anymore. He moves down to the auditions that are going on, and we just get a lot of crazy people doing their shtick for the camera. No one super mentionable here except for a very early appearance by Taylor Negron, but I don't even know what the bit is that he's doing here when he's auditioning. But we cut from just a series of insane auditions to him in a sauna with another gentleman. And it's basically a scene from The Last Married Couple in America where this guy's like, hey, I just got divorced and I'm having sex with everybody and it's great. And I just have too much sex. It's driving me crazy. It's actually a combination of Last Married Couple and Serial, that when the old man's like on the edge of the boat, he's like, I actually don't want to have sex this much. It's driving me crazy.
Is this something that people did more in the 80s? Did a bunch of dudes hang out in saunas?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
But also, this is the only person, one of the only people who doesn't try to pitch something to him.
Yeah.
He's just actually trying to have a conversation with Chuck Barris.
Yeah, which is probably why he's like so relaxed in here. Otherwise, he would have just gotten up and left already.
But then he gets up and leaves.
Yeah, he does. We get a montage of some footage from the show. We see the Unknown Comic, which is one of the more famous Gong Show performers. He's just a comedian telling bad jokes with a paper bag over his head. For a second, we see him being hugged and lifted into the air by a professional wrestler. And I guess this is Jesse Ventura.
Yeah.
It sounds exactly like Jesse Ventura to me.
Are you making sport of me or something? Listen, I'm a talented man. I've been on TV a lot. What are you choking with?
But I was like, this is before Jesse Ventura was a thing, because I thought Jesse Ventura started in like the late 80s to 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But he has credits going way back on IMDb, but none of them are this. None of them are even appearances on the Gong Show, let alone this movie.
It looks and it sounds exactly like
it sounds
him.
too much like him to not be him. So I can only assume that this is actually Jesse Ventura, the former governor of Minnesota, I believe.
Yes.
And that's what he's famous for, right?
Yeah. And that ain't got time to bleed.
Yeah. During another piece of this montage, we see a Japanese American performer saying things in Japanese, and Chuck is pretending to translate for him.
Remember Pearl Harbor.
But he's like, I'm pretty sure that's not what he's actually saying. We get a little bit of Tony Randall singing a song about a little bit of business. We get a woman who like folds herself in half and has like a puppet vagina talking up between her legs.
Yeah.
And then the unknown comic does a bit where he pretends that he accidentally crushes a bird while he's trying to do some magic. A guy jumps up on stage, and I'm unclear if this guy's name is Melvin or Milton, because it sounds like people say two different things.
Melvin Prasar.
Melvin Prasar, okay.
He was a regular.
And he gets up and he performs this chicken song, and he actually gets gonged off stage. But they have the system where if someone says one more time, you get invited back to continue performing. And they bring him back on stage like 4 or 5 times before they send him off just before a commercial break. And he has a heart attack backstage because it's a very involved chicken song and dance that he's doing. And he's an older gentleman. So Chuck goes with Red to visit him at the hospital. Is it with Red or with Jay?
It's with Red.
And they go to the hospital. They get in the elevator at the hospital, and Patrick Cranshaw, the old man that played the gas station attendant, is standing leaning against the back wall of the elevator, and he just dies and falls to the ground in the background.
The gas station attendant in Private Eyes?
In Private Eyes, yeah. And he's
Blue.
also my boy Blue. Melvin is in his hospital bed, and he's not talking very loudly until Chuck gets really close, and then he basically jumps up and down dancing and singing a new bit that he's auditioning on the hotel bed. And Chuck's like, I got to get out of here. I'm going to give this guy another heart attack. Like, this is driving me crazy. And a doctor stops him on his way out, and he's like, you're Chuck Barris, right? I have to have a conversation with you. And he drags him into this corner room, and he's like, listen, I know about your friend and about the performance that he did, and all the doctors here agree. My show is much better. He starts going into his audition. He calls himself Dr. Jerry the Singing Chef. It's a very overly complicated title. When he first pops out in the hallway, he's like, where did you come from? And he's like, well, Utah originally, but I've been in California for 27 years. And then he moves into this side room where he's going to perform. And he says, Dr. Crawford will be playing the piano. There's like another doctor in full scrubs doing the piano. He's cooking an egg while singing the recipe to the tune of Camptown Races. And then he throws a bunch of food in Chuck's face.
Yeah.
Which is a part of the joke, and everyone laughs at that because it's funny to see someone get something thrown in their face. And he leaves. He's done with this. Outside, as he's getting into his car, Melvin is running out of the hospital, and a bunch of nurses tackle him to the ground as he tries to pitch something else all the way across the parking lot. Red tells him to just quit the show, and he goes to play with his band of friends. It seems like this is another group of people that he can kind of get by without having to be auditioned to all the time. And he's telling them all the crap that he went through today with people trying to perform for him everywhere that he goes.
Well, I'm assuming that this is his outlet for trying out new songs, because Chuck Barris wrote a lot of music.
Right.
And performed a lot of music. So I'm sure this is probably either the real group that he actually composes with or does his songs with, or
it's interesting. This is our second consecutive film where the protagonist is a songwriter who's performing his own music that he's written. As we're getting this song, and it's a decent song. I like all the music that he wrote that I've heard. We get kind of a montage of them all playing together, and then the hectic drive home that he has. On his way, he's trying to break up a domestic dispute that's happening on the side of the road. But then after he pulls the guy off of the girl like the two of them team up on him and start beating him up. And then when he gets the rest of the way home, he opens up his garage door. There's these two creepy brothers that are like hiding in the garage waiting to attack him. They want to get revenge for their mom who was gonged off of the show. And so to appease them, he invites them to come sing a song on the show. We get another montage of more footage. Those brothers are immediately gonged off by the same guy who gonged their mother off. And they're like making a mental note like, we're going to catch up with you after the show. There's a guy smashing eggs on his forehead. Gene the dancing machine comes out and does his bit, at the end of which JP Morgan whips her tits out.
Yeah.
And we freeze frame on them for a second.
I assume this was included because they shot it for the show and could not air it. So they're like, we got to find an outlet for this.
This was live. This is footage from the show. This was live. This aired.
The Gong Show was live?
Yes.
Okay, that's crazy.
It was a live broadcast, and it was a recurring joke that JP Morgan would pretend like she was going to strip, and then people would constantly jump in and stop her, and nobody stopped her here.
Whoops.
So she continued stripping and then pulled her boobs out while a camera was on her, and she got fired from the show for it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But this is the actual footage of her doing that, and obviously when it happened on TV, it was a split second, but here they freeze frame on it and hold it for like 3 seconds. Corporate insists on having a dinner with Chuck because he thinks that there's a lot of problems with the show and he wants to discuss the flagging ratings. So he makes a reservation for 3 at Mateo's, and they're sitting in the kitchen of this restaurant, and the waiter that's serving them is Rip Taylor, and he is phenomenal. This whole scene kills me.
Yeah, Chuck and the woman, Robin Altman, I think. Yeah, they are all smiles this whole time, trying to hold it together.
She cannot stop laughing at Rip Taylor.
Yeah, and the guy who plays Didlo is the only one who's playing it straight.
Like, he does such a great job here.
Because Rip Taylor is just all over the place. He's like falling onto the table and just
and you can tell he's improvising like 90% of what he's saying, because that's just how Rip Taylor works. But yeah, it's so great. When he first he sits them down and he says, "Oh yeah, I got you this table back here because I know you hate when people audition to you. You know, far from the maddening crowd," like making fun of like the people that are inside the restaurant. Then while Rip is away from the table, a chef steps over and tries to audition for him, which is exactly what they didn't want and why they're in this back room. And he's like, "Now I'm going to play a little song for you. I think it's pretty good. Dr. Crawford, if you don't mind." And he points and it's the same doctor from the hospital playing the piano, full scrubs again. And he starts singing the song, and it's not a bad song, but he's like halfway through it when Rip Taylor comes back and starts screaming at him, and Red just breaks every time Rip says anything. She tries to talk him into quitting again when Mr. Didlo walks in. Then Rip starts running up to the table. He's like, "Coming up, chair for Mr. Dildo. Sorry, Didlo." And Red starts laughing at that. Then he says,
We have no menus. I mean, we have no menus. I mean, we keep getting ripped off. Let's just not discuss the menus any further, shall we? And I'll be okay. No, it's nothing. Decide what you want to eat. I'll see if we can fix it for you, okay? Just take your time. I'll be back in an hour and a half, and you just try to relax. Could you take one of us to relax? We burn the menu.
The two of them just break immediately on that line, and they like. I think Chuck actually gets going talking like pretty quickly, but you can tell Red would have been useless for the rest of this scene because she's just laughing so hard at him coming back in an hour and a half. But yeah, Didlo tells him that corporate is very scared of all the risque stuff they're putting on the show. Obviously, Jay flashing her breasts, girls giving head to popsicles, and transvestites.
Cute transvestites. You gotta admit, they're cute transvestites. Yeah.
He follows him into the bathroom where Chuck is trying to use a urinal, and Didlo keeps referring to him by his full name until the guy peeing at the urinal next to him turns and he's like, "Wait, you're Chuck Barris?" and just pees all over his legs. The next day, Red makes breakfast in bed for Chuck. Didlo climbs over their balcony and into the room, and he's like, "What's going on? I've been knocking for an hour, and I tried calling. I bet you guys turn your phones off." Anyway, and he just climbs into bed with them and like pulls over the breakfast in bed and starts eating it. And Red's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm eating Chuck's breakfast. What does it look like I'm doing?" But then he talks to them about like how he really cares about them and he wants to help make the show better. And they have like this kind of lovey-dovey moment where they're all being friendly. They say, you know, I wonder how many other people are lucky enough to wake up next to someone they love this morning. And then we get this quick montage all around town of, I'm assuming, a regular Gong Show contestant, this two-headed character of these two guys that are wearing just large clothes that they can both fit in. And then there's a girl in bed with like 4 different guys. And then we see the unknown comic in bed with an unknown one-night stand. So both of them have paper bags over their heads. And then there's a big poster above his bed of him completely naked with a bag over his head and another bag over his dick.
Yeah.
Chuck sits down with Jay. She promises not to be dirty. This conversation never happened because she was fired when she flashed the cameras on the show. In the movie, at least, they're saying that he talked her down from being as problematic on the show. The next day, Chuck oversleeps, kind of wanders through the crowded audition space. We get more people. I forget what the guy's name was. Walter Wonderman or Wonderman? Something like that. He's trying to do an audition, and Chuck is basically like totally zoning out, so he just leaves in the middle of the guy's set, which he's pretty upset about. When Chuck gets back to his office, his daughter is waiting in there with him, and she wants to tell him that she's getting married. And she brings out her fiance, and it's NBA player Bill Bridges, who is probably twice as tall as his daughter.
Yeah.
Later on, we see him. Chuck like tries to blow off some steam to get away from everything, so he goes to play racquetball for a while. He's playing it super violently with a friend of his, and that doesn't calm him down enough. So he decides he's going to have another band practice with all of his buddies, and he goes to call them. And a couple of guys notice that it's Chuck Barris and make fun of him within earshot. So he follows them because he's done dealing with these people and letting them do this to him. And he wants to pick a fight with them in the parking structure. Right as he's trying to pick the fight with them, a bunch of onlookers start auditioning for him when they recognize who he is. We move into more clips from the show. Chuck is sitting with a psychiatrist and tells her that he hates doing the show, that he can't stand it anymore. And the psychiatrist says, well, maybe you should take a break. Maybe you should, take a vacation from the show, which is exactly what Red's been telling him to do.
Right.
So instead he goes home and decides to take a break from Red when she repeats what the psychiatrist just said. And then he says, no, you know what? There's too many people that are counting on me, and maybe we should break up. Maybe the problem is I'm spending too much time with the person I love and not enough time with this show that I hate. And so he breaks it off with her, or at least they're on a break here. But then he calls the show immediately. Like, it seems like he had an immediate change of heart after he broke it off with her. And he says, hey guys, I'm not coming in for a while. I'm going to take a break. And they're like, oh, well, what are we supposed to do until you get back? And he's like, I don't know. Literally anybody could host the show. Just get someone else to do it. He gets in his car and he drives way out of town to get to a diner. And he can't even get food there because both of the waitresses are trying to audition for him as soon as they recognize him. He goes out to Santa Fe Airport. In line behind him is Phil Hartman, inexplicably holding a gun. This is Phil Hartman's second film. If you'll recall, we had him in his first film, Stunt Rock, earlier this year. He doesn't really recognize him at first, but then eventually he's like, oh, you're the host of the Gong Show?
Hey, aren't you that little fellow who does that TV show, The Gong Show? Sure, you are that guy, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm the guy.
Gee, that's a terrific show. Can anyone get on that show? I'd love to get on that show. I do a great imitation of Baryshnikov.
That's good.
Well, can I show it to you now?
I've got to take an airplane, okay?
Okay, I'll catch you when you get back.
This character that Phil Hartman is portraying, his style of his choice of voice and everything is just like perfect classic Phil Hartman.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
I miss that man.
I actually realized when I was putting the cast list together for this episode that we didn't talk much about him last time because we mentioned his cameo, but then he wasn't in our cast list for Stunt Rock. At least I don't think he was, but we'll talk about him today. He decides, at the recommendation of the airline attendant, he says, I'm going to get a flight to like the most random desert I can find. And so he sends him to Morocco. And we see him walking around the desert of Morocco, which I'm sure is Morro Bay.
See, I thought it might be the Kelso Dunes here.
Oh, it could be either one.
Like, because in the credits, they say a thank you to Pismo Beach.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Pismo Beach has some dunes, but I don't know if they look like this.
Yeah.
The Kelso Dunes out in Mojave look like this.
Yeah, but this also reminded me a lot of, because Morro Bay is where they shot the desert scenes for the Gauntlet opening gambit.
Okay.
With the map. And that was like right on the beach.
On the coast too, yeah.
So it could have been there. But the only reason I'm convinced that it's California is because the USC Trojans come marching over the hill here. But he's sitting in the desert by himself for a while when a helicopter lands. Didlo walks up as the Lawrence of Arabia score is playing. Which, did they pay for the Lawrence of Arabia score right here? Or is it a sound-alike? Because it sounds so close.
I think it's a sound-alike.
It's uncomfortably close for a sound-alike if they're not paying full price.
It sounded exactly like it to me.
Yeah. I didn't notice a changed note in it. But he says, I understand you wanted to be by yourself, but there's a lot of people that care about you, and we just wanted to let you know. And he whistles, and everybody comes out. So you have the Trojans come over the hill, and then all the contestants and employees of the show and everyone in his life comes down. They all circle around him at the bottom of these sand dunes and sing a song called Don't Get Up For Me. Yeah, it's a decent song, and it's fun. You get like a reprise from each character that we've seen over the course of the film. And then we get this maybe unnecessary last pack of clips from the show. I didn't hate the clips. I kind of got the impression that these were included because they're just clips that Chuck Barris liked from the show that he wanted to include. So we have this performance of like all these nuns that are singing like this religious parody song. And then can't even remember what the other two
The unknown comic was back.
Yeah. And then the other guy that was just kind of dancing and awkward. But then that's the end of the film. As we said, sorry.
I was going to say, it's kind of strange that he would make a film about this when this was, in fact, the last year of the Gong Show.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because the Gong Show ended in 1980.
I thought it ended in 79.
76 to 1980.
I'll get to Chuck Barris in the cast, but right now we'll talk about the only other person in the writer-director section, which would be Robert Downey Sr. Robert Downey Sr. is obviously the father of Iron Man. He is an actor and director in his own right. He was in Magnolia as the show director of the What Do Kids Know series.
Yeah.
And he's also, because he's a regular Paul Thomas Anderson character, so he played a studio manager in Boogie Nights also. He wrote and directed a movie called Putney Swope, which, have you ever seen that movie, Putney Swope?
I have not.
It's a weird movie, but I kind of enjoy it. It's like a dark comedy, but it's kind of like Simon in that they're giving someone like complete control of their show.
Arnold Johnson played Putney.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, Arnold Johnson. It's a good movie, but it's like this guy is brought in and they let him write all the commercials and all of... what's that one where they decide that they're going to let all the people at the asylum write all the advertisements? Do you know the one I'm talking about?
No.
Crazy People?
Yeah, maybe it is called Crazy People. What is the premise?
With Dudley Moore and Daryl Hannah.
Yeah.
A bitter ad executive who has reached his breaking point finds himself in a mental institution where his career actually begins to thrive with the help of the hospital patients.
Yeah, because they start giving him all these like super abstract pitches for advertising campaigns, and then they end up working really well.
That sounds excellent.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But yeah, I feel like growing up with Robert Downey Sr. and like all this like absurdist comedy background was definitely like helped develop who Robert Downey Jr. became. But our other writer for this film is the lead character of the film, Chuck Barris, playing himself here. He was obviously the host of the Gong Show for 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
He was the writer-director of this movie. He composed the song Palisades Park. He composed the Newlywed and Dating Game themes, which explains his soundtrack credits in the Minions, X-Men First Class, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows films.
Yeah.
He is also the author of the novel Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which was adapted by Charlie Kaufman for George Clooney to direct into the film of the same name.
Which is also about his life.
Right.
Now, obviously, the stuff that's...
I know what you're about to say, and I'm going to get offended.
Oh.
You're going to call it a fictionalized account.
Yes.
Which it is not. He actually killed people for the CIA. He was a spy. Because
he never married a woman named Penny. But he did marry this Robin Altman who plays Red in this movie.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure after seeing Robin Altman in this movie that Drew Barrymore's character of Penny is supposed to be her.
Oh, okay. He was married to three women, right?
So I started to watch this because I've never seen this movie. I didn't get very far before
We ran out of time.
But he calls her Red.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the movie.
But they have different first names. Yeah.
Because Red in this movie is Robin.
Right.
And
Yum.
not Robin Wright. Her name is something different in the other movie. Probably because he didn't have the rights to real people.
Right, because at that point they were divorced, I think.
Yeah. But Jess was pointing out when we were watching the movie that his wife in the Gong Show movie is his second of 3 wives, each of whom he was married to about 20 years. It was like 19 years each.
Well, it was 19, 19, and 17 because he died.
Yeah. That's crazy.
He's like a cicada.
Sure. Sounds a little different to me. Speaking of Robin Altman, she plays Red here, and this was her only film. I think it's her only IMDb credit even. Mabel King played Mabel. That was the secretary at the show. She plays Steve Martin's mother in The Jerk.
Mm-hmm.
She plays Eveline in The Wiz, which is funny because we just had Evelyn.
Yeah.
In which movie was that? That was Carney.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, but she plays Evelyn in Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm just saying the character names are similar. It's funny. She also played Mama on What's Happening, and she played the grandma in Scrooged.
Yeah, Alfred Woodard's mother.
Yeah, who's like, oh yeah, we just got to turn the lights on the Christmas tree. She's like, well, we don't have a tree. And she's like, we do now. No, not again. James B. Douglas was Buddy Didlo. He played Eugene Carmichael in The Changeling, which I think is the senator who stole the Changeling's title.
In this movie?
He's the guy who's the stooge from corporate that's trying to get the show in trouble.
I'll have to go back and look at that again.
Well, because the senator's really old.
Yeah, I thought so too, but it says Eugene Carmichael. How many Carmichaels are in that movie?
Well, because he has a son.
Do we ever see the son?
We must have. I think he's in the car with him in The Changeling.
Okay, well maybe that's what it was then. Did he even have any lines?
I'm not sure.
Maybe that's what it is.
Or maybe he played.
He wouldn't have played the young
Maybe
version.
he played the father in the flashback.
Oh,
drowning the son.
It could have been that.
That makes more
I don't
sense.
remember if we see a face.
Doesn't matter. Somebody got to play him.
That's true, but why would you get a face actor who's funny? Either way, he played Eugene Carmichael in The Changeling. Whoever that was. Harvey Lembeck played the man in the steam room. He's Sergeant Shapiro in Stalag 17.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in Stalag 17, but Shapiro is pretty high up on the credits list.
Yeah.
But I can't remember which one he is.
It's funny because I think the last time we had someone from Stalag 17, you're like, I am very intimately familiar with that film, and I don't know who this was.
Yeah.
Every time you're going to be like, you know what? I was thinking of a different movie.
It's embarrassing.
He's also in a bunch of beach movies from like the 50s and 60s. Murray Langston is the unknown comic. I just revealed that here first.
Oh, no.
Nobody knew that before I said it. He plays himself in Confessions of a Dangerous Mind because they intercut with these like confessional type talking head moments. Mm-hmm. He also wrote 2 Linda Blair films, Night Patrol and Up Your Alley, the second of which he stars opposite her as her love interest. And he also wrote a movie called Wishful Thinking. Steve Garvey plays himself. I don't remember which one was Steve Garvey, but he plays Mr. Spodak in Ice Cream Man, the Clint Howard horror classic.
Yeah.
Steve Garvey is a former Dodger. He was known as Mr. Clean when he played for them.
L.A. or Brooklyn?
I think Los Angeles, because this was shot in Los Angeles. Jamie Farr plays himself as just the judge on the Gong Show occasionally. Yeah. And they joke at one point that he could take over hosting duties because who cares? He played Klinger on MASH, obviously. He's also in Scrooged. Mm-hmm. He plays Jacob Marley in the TV version of the play. And he plays the Sheik in both of the Cannonball Run movies. Patrick Cranshaw was credited as man dying in elevator.
Yeah.
He's my boy Blue. Vincent Schiavelli was Mario Romani, one of the 2 brothers who was upset that his mom got gonged off the show.
Yeah. Oh, always a presence on screen because he's so frigging tall.
Yeah, he's a fascinating character. He was in Soft Touch, obviously. Everyone remembers that MacGyver episode. He was Fredrickson in Cuckoo's Nest.
He was one of our pair brothers in that too, wasn't he?
No, they weren't brothers. They were just
2
criminals
thugs.
that worked together. Yeah.
That was the soap commercial or shampoo?
It was like a dishwasher soap or something. Fredrickson in Cuckoo's Nest. He plays Carl in Night Shift.
The subway ghost in Ghost.
Yeah, the subway ghost in Ghost. Mr. Vargas in Fast Time. And he played Lanny in the X-Files episode Humbug, which is one of my favorites.
That's a great episode.
That's the one where they go to Gibsonton, Florida, and
right.
he has like a conjoined twin that can separate from him and kill people. It's pretty fascinating. Pat McCormick was himself. He is also in Scrooged as the Ghost of Christmas Present.
In the play.
Yeah. J.P. Morgan is playing herself in the film, and she also plays herself in Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. She was born Mary Margaret Morgan, and she was elected treasurer in high school, at which point she changed her name to J.P. Morgan as a joke because she was the treasurer and the name stuck. She was also a musical performer in her own right and had a variety show for a while before The Gong Show. She was a regular judge on the show until she was fired for flashing her breasts on live television. Gene Patton played Gene the Dancing Machine.
Regular.
Again, playing himself in Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. And I remember as a child that whenever me or my brother would break into sporadic dance, that my dad would always say, "Oh, look, it's Gene the Dancing Machine," whenever we would start dancing. I had no idea what he was referring to until I saw this movie. Rip Taylor is the restaurant maitre d'.
Yeah.
He plays the genie in the DuckTales movie. He's himself in Wayne's World 2.
He's a god in my country.
He's also in the Dukes of Hazzard movie, and I'm guessing that's a result of his appearance in Jackass 2, because Johnny Knoxville was in the Dukes of Hazzard movie, and Johnny Knoxville and Rip Taylor became very good friends after Jackass 2. He also did the voice of Uncle Fester for the animated Addams Family, which is our second.
Wait, that one that just came out?
No, from the early 90s.
Oh.
It actually had John Astin doing Gomez, but it had Debbie Derryberry as Wednesday.
Oh.
So I didn't realize that was a thing, but I love Rip Taylor. And honestly, like, his presence in this film is like the best 3 minutes of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I like this movie, but I think he's the best part of it for sure.
He passed away not too long ago.
No, pretty recently.
Yeah.
Because it was like Rip Taylor and Rip Torn in the same year, right?
Yeah, Rip the Rips.
Oh.
What?
Rip the Rips.
Yeah. He looked the same when he died as he did in 1980.
Yeah.
Like 40 years earlier, he did not age at all. Mostly because he just dressed so crazily all the time.
And that mustache never goes away.
Yeah, no. Della Barris, as herself here, daughter of Chuck, unfortunately passed away in 1998 from a drug overdose. Yeah. Nora Denny played the tourist lady. I'm not even sure who the tourist lady is.
So when he's picking because I recognized her.
Yeah.
And when he's picking the fight with the tall guy, the two tourists who are trying to take photos with him.
Oh, okay.
And,
that makes sense then. Yeah, that's right. She's got glasses on.
Yeah.
Okay. But that tourist lady is Mrs. TV in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And she also played Miss Stein in Splash. Mm-hmm. Tony Randall is himself, obviously. You know him best from the SNL sketch with Mr. Short-Term Memory Loss.
You're Tony Randall!
Which I tried to find that sketch for like 2 hours yesterday. I was getting so mad.
Yeah.
Wow! Oh, I don't know what. Tony Randall, I am a big fan of yours!
Nice to meet you, Jeff.
Okay, gentlemen, you know the rules. Jeff will give the clues, and Tony will receive.
Wow! Tony Randall! Hey! I am a big fan of yours!
Good, thank you.
Could I have your autograph, please? Please.
Now?
Yes, please. Please.
There you go.
What is this? Tony Randall. What, you just hand these out to people you meet? That's a little sad.
I also like the joke of
on The Simpsons. When he goes to the steakhouse.
Yeah, it's just two people, the only two people who've ever finished this giant steak.
It's like Tony Randall and this trucker.
Yeah.
And he's like looking at the pictures of Tony Randall and the trucker on the wall, and then at the trucker. And he's like,
"It's you! You're him! You're Tony Randall!" Red Barkley's my name.
He called me Greenhorn. I called him Tony Randall. It was a thing we had.
But for realsies, you probably know Tony Randall as Felix Unger from The Odd Couple, which is, like, I would say, his biggest thing.
Yeah.
Unless you count the voice of the brain gremlin in Gremlins 2.
I wanna
talk a little bit about what's going on in this room, because I think there are some fascinating ramifications here for the future. When you introduce genetic material of research quality to a life form such as ours, which is possessed of a sort of, I hesitate to use the word, atavism, but let us say a highly aggressive nature. For example, that fellow over near the, I believe that's a common bat of the order Chiroptera, the only mammals, I might add, capable of true flight.
Which is the best thing he did. He also played Hercule Poirot in the Alphabet Murders, which might be a comedy. I can't tell judging from the poster,
I don't know.
But it looked like something I would actually want to see. Phil Hartman was the man at the airport with a gun. I love that the gun doesn't play a part, but I worry that there was more to this scene that didn't happen and that got cut. I would like to believe that the plan was always that we're not going to show this guy hijack anything. We're literally just going to show him have a gun. And even at the end of the scene, he's like holding a newspaper to cover his face, and he steps up to the counter with a gun and a paper covering his face, and we just cut to where the flight was going, and we never see what happened to this guy. But Phil Hartman was wonderful. He was a treasure. This was his second film after Stunt Rock. He was Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz on The Simpsons. Mm-hmm. He was the inspiration for and would have been the voice for Zapp Brannigan.
Yeah.
If he'd still been around.
News Radio.
Bill McNeil on News Radio. He was the air conditioner in The Brave Little Toaster. He plays Sam in Three Amigos. I'm assuming that's someone at the very beginning of the film because I don't remember him.
Yeah. He
played Captain Carl on Pee-wee's Playhouse, for which he was a writer. He wrote the movies also, and he was just a super, super funny guy. It's sad that he's gone. Two other contestants on the Gong Show over the course of the film were Betsy Lynn Thompson and Carol Gwynn Thompson, who performed as the Siamese Connection. They were the twins for Midnight Madness's sorority team. And as I said at the beginning, Taylor Negron he's credited as blonde-haired man auditioning, but he's very clearly not blonde-haired in the film. He was Milo in The Last Boy Scout, who I think gets dropped onto the top of a helicopter as this death scene. There's something involving a helicopter, and it's amazing.
The Last Boy Scout is such a crazy movie.
Have you seen The Last Boy Scout?
I have not.
We should watch that soon because it's pretty phenomenal. It's Shane Black, written and directed.
Okay.
And I think he directed it.
I don't remember.
He wrote it at least, but it's so good.
Yeah.
He played the mailman in Better Off Dead. This was actually his first feature. He played a pizza guy in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He's the one who, like, Sean Penn ordered a pizza delivered to class, and he's the one delivering the pizza to the classroom. He also played a pizza man in Johnny Dangerously, or a delivery man in Johnny Dangerously. He also plays the character Taylor in One Crazy Summer, which I'm assuming was a result of having worked with Cusack in Better Off Dead. One Crazy Summer was after Better Off Dead, right?
I think so.
Who knows?
They blur together for me.
He's also Fausto in Nothing But Trouble. He, too, passed away, unfortunately, from liver cancer in 2008. So there's a lot of tragedy to this one. But I like this movie a lot.
I wanted to mention one more person, only because, again, it was someone I recognized, and I only recognize him from one other thing.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the movie, when he's first getting into the studio, there's a man they keep focusing on who just winks at him.
Yeah. I remember that.
So the actor is William Tregoe, and the only other thing I know him from is from Airplane, when they're going through all the news broadcasts, and it's him, and it says counterpoint. It's like, they bought their tickets. They knew what they were getting into. I say, let them crash. And that's the only thing I was like.
You went through his whole IMDb and that was it?
No, I just recognized him. That's the guy from Airplane. That just says "Let him crash." Because again,
That's
Airplane's
funny.
a movie I'm pretty hyper familiar with.
Right, and he would have looked similar because this is the same year. So
correct.
Yeah, this movie was really great. I was kind of dreading watching it because when we were first getting ready to watch it, we kind of flipped through it a little bit, and we're noticing like, oh, this is a lot of like weird sketches and clips from the show. Like, this looks like it's going to be a dumb clip show of a movie. But I enjoy this much more than I expected to going into it.
I think it was a dumb clip show of a movie.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I'll admit that the clips from the show are actually its weakest point.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm a really big fan of the movie Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Yes.
And I'm sure that this movie was part of Sam Rockwell's performance.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Like, because they use some of the bits, like the what's the difference between a shower curtain and a toilet paper? And it's like, we found the guy.
Yeah.
They use that bit in the movie. In this movie, in the Gong Show movie, when he goes, just take me away. Yeah. They play that scene because in the Confessions movie, he believes that he's being targeted for an assassination.
Right.
And he's just tired of waiting for it, and he's losing his mind when he's saying that line. So I like the kind of like the parallels, and I think Sam Rockwell did an amazing job playing him.
Yeah.
With the dancing around on the stages and the hats and all that stuff.
You know who I think might have been a slightly better fit even? It would have been a stretch for him. But I think he looks more like the character, and I think he could have pulled off the rest of the performance really well.
Sidney Pollack.
J.K. Simmons. If you look at Chuck Barris's face and you look at J.K. Simmons' face, they have the same face. If you put the right wig on J.K., I think he would be a dead ringer.
At the time too.
And he would have been the right age, and I think he could have done a really swell job at it. I love Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, mostly just because I mean, especially at the time, I was a massive fan of Charlie Kaufman's and just like looked up everything that he was doing constantly. But yeah, that's a great movie, and I think that the two of these would make a great double feature. But I like this movie a lot. Jess, up or down?
I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
I'm gonna give it a down. There just wasn't enough there. I mean, I think that you fell in love with the dialogue. You know, it was a lot of quips, but there's not a lot of story. It didn't need to be a movie. Sorry.
That's fair.
I'm giving it up.
Okay, thank you.
I like you. I think I went in dreading it, and I think that maybe kind of skews my feelings for it because it's like, oh, I'm actually really enjoying these clips from the Gong Show.
Yeah.
Just because, like,
some of them are great.
Yeah. As a movie, I agree with Jesse that there's not a lot of substance to this story. Nothing's really happening.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
You know, as a product, I was like, yeah, I'm fine with this.
I could sit through this a second time in a row, and I would be totally fine with it. I just kind of wish that Chuck Barris had an opportunity to be a leading man in more movies than this, because I feel like I did not expect him to be as charismatic and compelling as a leading man of a fictional narrative, as fictional as this is. I mean, it's based almost entirely on things that have actually happened to the man. I feel like he could have carried his own in a just straight romantic comedy or a regular comedy. It's too bad that this was the only thing that he did that was like a scripted adventure. I think without all the clips in it, if they had found ways to fictionalize and act out other scenes from his life instead of using archival footage, that I think the whole movie would have been better.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think I would have liked it more.
Yeah. For me, the bits of dialogue that we get are worth the price of admission, and I would say that it's worth checking out. Letterboxd. Richard, where's this going?
Despite my glowing review of it,
sure.
I still have it kind of mid-ranged. I'm gonna put this below Tom Horn, but above Folks.
Okay, Jessica.
So I have it almost smack dab in the middle of my list right now. It's probably not too far from the middle of Richard's list. I have it below Saturn III and above Heartbeat.
Okay, that's fair. For me, this goes above When Time Ran Out, but below Humanoids of the Deep. I think that's where I'm putting it.
I think it's interesting because I feel like we all put it in a very similar area in our lists.
Yeah, it's
maybe
it's a middle of the road kind of like, this is okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying I gave that a down.
That's 13th place for me.
Oh, yeah, you had Humanoids higher than
because
it
Humanoids
deserved.
has a dummy that turns and looks at a tent flap when a sea monster approaches.
Yeah.
I think that's about everything for this one. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share with us, we are Vintage Video Pod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Letterboxd, where, as I said before, you can find each of our full movie rankings for the year. We can also be found at vintagevideopodcast.com. Please consider rating us on iTunes to help people find the show, and if you take the time to leave us a review, we will thank you personally in an upcoming episode. If you're feeling especially generous, you can support the show through patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing The Shining, which IMDb summarizes like so. A family heads to an isolated hotel for the winter, where a sinister presence influences the father into violence, while his psychic son sees horrific forebodings from both past and future.